Tales from my D&D campaign.
Previously, what is this mission all about?
Recently, through my contacts back home in the Feywild, I learned about a very unnatural disaster befalling a forest. I heard that something was eating or grinding down this forest, and I've determined that the cause of the situation is an amulet that belonged to King Kelvoras of the Eladrin.
I can cast the plane shift. This is amazing. This is disturbing.
Feywild, if you'll sit back for a couple days, let it go on for another 10 kilometers or so before you try to stop it, I'll find a way to help you win.
This spirit thing will devour 10 kilometers in only 2 days? We're not going to just stand by while an innocent village is destroyed, are we?
Pfft, no. All right, show's over. But don't call me when you find out there's nothing to do with all your strength.
Does anybody else feel like we're forgetting something? Don't think so. Boy, serious.
Diswell did warn us it was tearing up the place. He said it was a minor decay spirit. He said it was trivial. Looks like the artifact's the real deal.
The mass of green goo was steadily eating away at the soil of the forest, though it seemed to dissolve wood somewhat more slowly, judging by the lonely poles rising out of its surface. Even as they watched, though, a couple of the farther ones creaked and leaned and fell over into the green. So the amulet is in there somewhere? It's miles across! This thing better not be miles deep, or infinite or something.
It's not. It can't be more than about 8 feet deep.
Huh? Why do you say that?
Because you can't go down more than 8 feet here.
What stops you? What do you hit?
Nothing. You just can't.
Angel looks at them real funny when she realizes they actually don't know what she means, and she has to explain, as you might explain that the Earth is round.
The Feywild only goes down about 8 feet below the surface. Oh, the ground isn't perfectly level, so it varies a little from place to place.
But with a few exceptions, if you pick any spot and dig down about 7.5 feet, it starts taking more and more force to dig down even a little further. So it's like the speed of light? Yes, it's an asymptote. And as you get closer to the bottom, which isn't exactly 8 feet deep, but it's pretty close, the amount of energy required to move another particle approaches infinity. But then what happens if you make a 2-foot-high pile of dirt, then try to dig down as far as you can? If you dig down right away, you'd be able to go down 10 feet, a little less than 8 feet below the original level. But if your pile of dirt stayed there for 2 or 3 centuries, and then you dug down, the bottom would have shifted by then, and you'd only make it down 8 feet beneath the pile.
What?
Stop breaking Draven.
Hold on. We're going to go fight a giant blob that dissolves things and is consuming miles of forest?
It can't be that dangerous. Though if you do die, it might be harder to raise dead. It may require true resurrection.
Why are we doing this again? Did they even mention a reward?
We're doing a mission for the Hand of Sirius, to strengthen Vistria against the Diluvians.
No reward? For retrieving an artifact? Assuming we hand it in.
We can't not hand it over.
Depends how good it is. I'll say.
And so they begin to investigate the goo. The pace at which it is consuming ground is concerning, but at 2 feet per round, it's far too slow to directly threaten them. I mean, they'd practically have to sit there and stick their finger in it.
I stick my finger in the goo.
What?
We don't know anything about it yet.
We know it's a spirit of decay.
And it eats through dirt and wood. Acids don't dissolve everything the same.
You stick your finger into the thick goo and take 9 damage.
That much?
I'll examine the wound.
Yeah, I'll see if I can discern anything about the magical nature. You guys don't learn much you didn't know. It's primarily a decay-based effect, any acid damage being more like a side effect. And the source seems to be more spirit or fey rather than arcane, divine, etc. Next round, Little One feels some force from the goo still acting on him, tearing at the wound. Take another 3 damage. Well, wait, obviously we healed him first.
It's okay, you guys were busy doing skill checks. I assume my armor crystal's DR doesn't affect this?
Nope. The Iron Ward crystal only affects physical damage. Black casts a Cure Light Wounds, and that stops the rotting effect. Little One pulls out a non-magical short sword he had in his pack and touches the goo with it, but it takes enough damage to be rendered essentially useless in a single round.
Okay. I wonder if I should try with my magic sword.
Hold on. That thing did 13 damage ignoring hardness. What if it wrecks your sword?
It's a good magic sword. It should be pretty tough.
Normally, if a magic item would be destroyed, he treats it as useless but repairable, with some cost. But if your good sword gets wrecked, you won't be able to use it till we get back to a facility where you can repair it. And this is an artifact-fueled engine of decay. What if it's an exception and it can permanently destroy your sword?
Fine. I'm probably going to make a new weapon soon, but I still want to keep this one, maybe upgrade it. I've scouted around a ways and I don't see the ends of this thing. And the only feature I've seen at all is that little rock over there.
Okay, I guess I'll have to try and fly out there to get a closer look, if nothing else.
I don't like this plan.
I don't like this plan, but we need to find the amulet in this thing, so I'm going to fly up, say 50-foot altitude. I'm going to hold up a scroll of Dimension Door, open and ready to cast. Then I'll slowly float 5 feet past the edge. Sure, nothing happens. I'll keep going a little further. Around 10 feet past the edge, you have to make a will save. A will save? That's the last thing I expected. Draven makes a save, as an invisible but palpable wave of energy passes through and around him, visibly, dramatically warping trees behind him which were caught in the line of effect. At the same time, the nearby region of the goo becomes more active. The visible change in the surface is almost unnoticeable, but it starts summoning spheres of desiccation, magical bubbles which deal damage by destroying the water within nearby living things. These spheres are only spells, same as Flaming Sphere. They can't be attacked or damaged, only avoided, either by physically moving out of range, or by dodging with reflex saves. Draven retreats back over land into the treetops, but the ooze seems to have engaged attack mode now, and he has to save against another beam of what seems to be a combination of warp wood and rusting grasp. Little One in Black each fail saves against one of the desiccation spheres, taking a modest 7 damage each, but they learn that the goo has an aura which deals 3 damage per round from decay to anyone who takes damage until that person receives some kind of healing.
Oh yeah? I breathe lightning on it.
You have a breath weapon?
Sort of. I only rolled 2 damage.
That had no effect, other than to shock the PCs, none of whom had ever seen Little One's breath weapon in character. From up in the trees, Angel shoots the ooze for some force damage, plus a little acid from her crossbow's weapon crystal.
Does that hurt it?
The force has some effect. Unsurprisingly, the acid does nothing. I don't know what to do about this.
Oh, whatever. I'll activate Flaming Blade and hack at the ooze. Can I even miss this thing?
It would be something of an accomplishment.
Then take 17 fire, 16 slashing, and 4 lightning.
Yeah, the electricity doesn't do anything, but the ooze is burnt around your sword, and as you slice down into it, you create a real cut. Although it begins to be covered up and filled pretty quick, the stuff exposed by the cut had a different texture than the surface, as though it really did something.
Wow. I expected the fire to work. I'm kinda shocked about the weapon damage doing anything.
Anything is a little relative, though. It's kind of like successfully damaging something with tens of thousands of HP. It's hard to imagine you're eroding it faster than it's expanding.
Doh.
And does the sword take damage? It seems mostly okay.
So it's undamaged?
Yeah, it's fine. So far. The goo did not appear to like fire, so Draven spends a charge on his cheapo wand of fireballs, which does minimal damage for a fireball, only 5d6. Nevertheless, the effect is sort of impressive, incinerating a 20-foot radius of the green mass, blasting it down to the bottom, which looks just like ordinary dirt in those few places it can be seen through the ash. But the gelatinous walls collapse rapidly, with goo flooding back into the crater until within a few rounds the only sign left by the spell was a mild surface depression. They end up retreating to regroup and come up with a solution. At a certain point, the aura of decay stops damaging the injured, but they keep going till they're about 1 kilometer from the edge of the ooze. Since the direct approach is getting nowhere, Black decides to cast Divination and simply ask his god where they should go to find the amulet at the heart of the blob. This divine answer is quite straightforward. Black is told to travel a short distance eastward, then a couple miles further north. Does your god want us to fly over the goo? 'Cause that seems like a horrible idea.
The edge of the forest isn't too far that way.
So?
If it was a minor spirit, maybe it can't leave the area of the forest. Or maybe it just doesn't realize that it can leave now.
Thiswell said it was ripping up the forest. That's how he described it.
That doesn't mean it stops at the edge of the forest? That's crazy!
Feywild.
Ugh. They head a couple miles further north, giving the goo a wide berth, but it doesn't react to them in any way. The place they were heading seemed to be a rock outcropping standing above the surface of the goo 500 feet from the edge. They need a plan. We can't just fly over. Those beams will degrade all our equipment out of existence.
The DC-18 will save isn't that hard. We could probably get through okay.
Even if we can give everyone fly spells, it would take 4 or more rounds to fly across, 6 or more in heavy armor. That's a lot of saves.
It didn't seem to like the fireball.
But it recovered in like no time. Question, can you make Wall of Fire, Draven?
Let me look it up. I know artificers get Wall of Stone and Wall of Force. It turns out Wall of Fire isn't on Draven's spell list, but if he spends some experience points, he can use some of his infusions to create what he calls temporary scrolls of almost any spell, including that one. They've used a lot of healing already today, and frankly, it's starting to get dark out, so they decide to rest, regain spells, and prepare properly for the fight. Draven uses a scroll of rope trick to create an extra-dimensional pocket off the ground, and they all climb into it to get some rest, taking turns watching the ground beneath them through the one-way invisible portal. After a couple hours, though, early in the second watch, they notice a potential problem.
There's some little glowy thing floating around the edge of our rope trick.
What the hell is that? Angel?
What? I was sleeping.
What is that glowing pyramid?
There are 2 of them now.
Gah!
Whatever those are, we don't have them where I come from. They must be a local thing.
I'm getting my wand of fireball.
We're not gonna kill the little glowy things.
They're giving away our location, and I think they're siphoning magic or something. Shoo! Go eat the giant ooze thing!
It's just the GM freaking with you, Draven.
Well, I don't like it. A little testing, sticking hands out, magic swords, etc., showed that the glowy things were incorporeal, difficult to damage, but also appeared pretty harmless. So those not on watch begrudgingly went back to sleep, while more of the little things continued to gather at the edges of the rope trick's invisible portal. God damn it! I hate this plane!
Don't blame me. I'm the one who left.
Now that you guys are, resting on the ground, under the starry sky, you notice a strange procession of shadowy or maybe translucent beings to the east. They come in all different shapes and sizes, all marching northward, roughly parallel to the side of the goo. Weird.
Don't look at me.
Are they some kind of spirits, or what?
How tall is that thing? There's no good frame of reference.
Wait, could that be the tall one?
When you go to the Feywild, please give this to the tall one. You'll know when you see him.
It could be him, but it's so ambiguous.
Feywild. Give him the stone. Who else could it be?
What the fox spirit said sounded like a prophecy.
Oh, fine. Hello? A fox spirit told us to give this to you? This very tall thing reaches down, way down, and its large hand takes the stone. Then it reaches up and places it among the stars. What? It nods to you, then takes stride alongside the procession. You can't do that!
It looks like just another star.
This plane's so nonsensical! At this rate, I'm going to start to dislike Angel by association.
Do we get anything out of this? Like, what was even the point of that? Well, it was a thing between spirits. Fae and spirits and junk believe that you get some kind of karma, like an immeasurable thing that will help you later on. I can't spend something immeasurable.
Immeasurable. They don't see much sense in spending another rope trick scroll to complete their rest, since the glowy things will probably just give away their position and pop it anyway, so they camp out the hard way. Draven does note the position of the new star, though, so he can compare it to his charts when they get back to the normal world. By dawn, they have rested, regained spells, and begin the final stages of planning.
Ooh, I know what to do. We'll ride a couple of the elephants through.
And what do we do when they dissolve 3 rounds in?
We just need to protect them somehow. How cool would it be, riding a blue and green elephant with diamond shoes?
We'd have to dominate them. You can't coax a wild animal into that stuff.
There was like nothing living in the woods near it.
I'm still waiting for the flying elephants.
I'm still waiting for the things that eat them from below. The real plan is for Black to cast Mass Resist Fire on the party, then for Draven to clear a path with a scroll of Wall of Fire, dropping a second wall as they approach the end, then use a third to encircle the rock outcropping while they, figure out what the hell they are doing. Even flying high, without going over the ooze, they can't see anything of note on a little island of stone, but they had no other clues, so they just had to trust in their divination.
I'm just wondering, what happens if you cut off a section with a wall? Think it dies and disappears?
You'd have to test it.
I can't cast a bajillion of these things. Well, I can, but it gets increasingly expensive, and we might need a couple to escape. So they buff up with every spell they can to improve their defenses or speed. They get close to the edge of what was once forest and is now a giant lake of green crud, and Draven casts his first wall. As an artificer, he has used an infusion, and spent some XP, to create a one-shot spell-storing item, essentially a scroll. But he also has an elevated caster level for crafting, which does apply here. So his wall of fire is 260 feet long and deals 2d6 plus 13 damage to anything passing through it. A wall of fire also projects heat in one direction, which does much less damage, only 2d4, but in this case that seems enough to burn back the ooze and to stop it from flowing back in, so they all start running down the hot side, sticking as close to the wall as they can. Of course, things don't go quite so smoothly. Sure, as long as they keep moving, the spheres of desiccation are no real threat, but apparently it can still hit them with the decay wave attack that Draven had dodged earlier, and they're all lined up so nicely for it. They have great bonuses to saving throws, but roll enough dice and some will come up 2s and 3s. So over the course of their run, most of them end up with their armor at least a little degraded, and Angel's crossbow is warped, rendered useless for the battle. But Draven drops the second wall as planned. They keep running and reach the rocks while taking barely any hit point damage. So now what? There's not much room to stand. The island's only about 15 feet square. Draven drops the third and final wall, this one in a ring shape, 60 feet across, placed up against the outcropping on one side, so they had a curtain of flame at their backs. Angel leads a quick search, but finds no sign of the amulet, or hidden caves, or anything else on the rocks. It's just as they're starting to think they've made a huge mistake, when animal-like forms begin rising out of the goo. Puppets of ooze formed around partially dissolved skeletons, which leapt onto the rocks to attack them, as more desiccating spheres emerged, and each round the massive ooze within the wall cast another decay wave or a mass chill metal on their armor, as well as a spell called Grey Mantle, which, on a failed fortitude save, renders a target unhealable for about a minute, which is of course obnoxious when everyone, once they've taken any damage, is effectively bleeding for 3 points a round until they get some kind of healing.
I think it's trying to kill us now. We must be on to something.
Joy. They mow down some medium-sized goo animals, then a couple large ones, but when a huge goo mammoth emerges, Black is like,
"You call that an elephant? This is an elephant."
That's not an elephant. It's a gauntlet.
Well, mine's still better.
They were doing fine already, but with the aid of Black's figurine of wondrous power, they should easily overpower the huge puppet beast, when emerges a small humanoid goo thing. Ha!
Whoa. I think this is different.
Unlike the fake animals, this avatar is on the same set of actions as the goo itself. It wasn't clear until now, but the goo had been taking normal actions all along, even if some of its actions involved casting multiple low-level spells at once. But its will was now focused into this tiny thing, shaped as a humanoid to counter the beings that were causing it so much trouble, and it started doing obnoxious things, like casting Dispel Magic as a swift action. Dispel is always annoying, since they benefit a great deal from their spells, but it seemed even worse here, bunched up in the Dispel radius, especially since their escape plan was the same as their entrance, running down the hot side of a wall of fire, and anyone who lost their resist fire buff would be taking 2d4 per round from their own spell, in addition to the 3 hit points around they're losing to the decay. Then it attacks Little One with Knight's Caress, a touch spell dealing 9d6 damage, and then forcing a fortitude save to avoid losing d6 plus 2 constitution, which would reduce the target's maximum hit points by a big chunk and worsen their saves against future castings. And it turns out the avatar also applies that anti-healing effect from earlier on every strike, another fortitude save. With all the desiccation spheres and the decay damage which continue continues until healing is received, Black's really struggling to keep up with this battle's attrition, though at least his Marble Fist statue can continue fighting while he does so. The goo hits them with a Shatter Floor spell, which does some sonic damage, but also breaks the rock they are standing on into difficult terrain, which hampers movement.
Not for me. I changed stance to Step of the Wind. I don't just ignore difficult terrain, I actually get +2 to hit.
I'll have the fist smash the elephant again.
That drops it.
Ha! That means we have no real reason to move. So with Angel's stance, the difficult terrain is actually helping us more than hurting.
As a swift action, it summons another sphere. Damn it, don't taunt the goo! Or the GM. There's a lot of desperate smashing by the PCs and crazy touch attacks and saving throws from the disproportionately dangerous child-sized goo being. But after another big hit, Angel spots something poking through the goo and tries to snag it with her spiked chain. She latches on, ripping it out of the thing's chest, but it reaches out, catching the object. It turns into a tug of war with opposed strength checks, and brute strength isn't Angel's strong suit.
Can't hold it. Just let me.
I'm with you.
They heave and tear the small object out of the goo's hands, and it tries to catch it again, but the body loses integrity, collapsing to the rock, leaving the heroes holding an amulet attached to a strand of gleaming hair. All around them, the ooze bubbles and roils, but it's beginning to recede from around their barrier as the patch within it diminishes. It looks like it may take some time for the whole lake of ooze to subside, but it's already revealing more and more bare ground around them, and more importantly, leaving them with the artifact they were seeking, the Collana Dialia, the amulet given to the Eladrin king by a goddess, strung on a necklace of her own divine hair. They make their way back to their campsite and heal up, making liberal use of Draven's wand of Cure Light Wounds to avoid running Black completely out of spells. Just in case.
Have you found any sign of Zahir?
Mahar? Wait, he's still here? But Zahir's summer vacation is over. He's gone home.
Yeah?
That doesn't mean his character just disappears from the universe.
But he did disappear after the plant fight.
And Mahar's been searching for him. I'm afraid we haven't found any clues about his disappearance. But we did get the artifact.
Oh, yay. I need to find Zahir. Without him,
Well, I think we can call this a successful test. So all that's left is for y'all to hand us back our amulets.
Next time on Tales from My D&D Campaign.
You can't go down more than 8 feet here.
What stops you? What do you hit?
Nothing. You just can't.
But what about on a mountain? You can only mine down 8 feet from the surface of the mountain.
what about caves?
There are caves in a few places, usually only where there are caves in the normal world.
What happens, though, if you're underground and cast plane shift?
If you just dug a shaft down 50 feet in the Fadelands, then plane shifted down there, you wouldn't get very far. If you cast it in a natural cave, there's a pretty good chance you'd end up in a corresponding cave. But then what happens if you make a 2-foot-high pile of dirt, then try to dig down as far as you can? If you dig down right away, you'd be able to go down 10 feet, a little less than 8 feet below the original level. But if your pile of dirt stayed there for 2 or 3 centuries, and then you dug down, the bottom would have shifted by then, and you'd only make it down 8 feet beneath the pile.
But we know you can go underground in the Shadowfell.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where the Underdark is.
Watch, we're gonna get there and find out you can go down as far as you want, but there's a ceiling 10 feet up.